year is a graduate of Bulacan State University in her baccalaureate degree in psychology. She finished her master's in psychology at La Consolacion School University and now pursuing her doctorate at Polytechnic University of the Philippines in clinical psychology. Currently, she is affiliated in Dr. Josefa Belia Memorial Hospital as psychologist too, and concurrently working part-time in Espada Psychological Consultancy in Angeles, Pampanga. Folks, Elsicians, a previous colleague, Miss Michelle Ann Elobundo, registered psychologist and psychometrician.
Good day, everyone. So, first of all, I would like to greet each and every one of us a happy mentally healthy well-being. It is of great privilege for me to be invited as your guest speaker, and I am also glad that we have all stable internet connection. We are healthy and safe right at this very moment, and I would also like to acknowledge your willingness to participate in this kind of mental health webinar since not all people are open to discuss mental health issues or anything related to it since they consider it as taboo and did not accept the fact that they are also in need of it. So for our objectives, basically, we will be discussing the current situation we are now facing today, which is the pandemic. How does it affect our lives, especially to students and other aspects? We will also be discussing ways to build resilience brought by these changes, and we will also differentiate if our coping mechanisms are still normal, healthy, or is it already pathological. And we will also demonstrate ways to maintain a healthy well-being despite of this crisis. So let's begin. Mental health in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic. In all of the things that are happening right now, it is important to acknowledge that we are all going through an extraordinary times. Things that are happening now are different from the usual things that we used to do. So as we can see in the illustration on our screen, so we are all going through an extraordinary times. So there are many what if, can't, bad, how, and don't. So for example, what if hindi mo kaya ang online class? What if you don't have stable internet connection? What if nawala ng internet or nawala ng kuryente? And what if you don't have any gadget? Or what if wala kang baon? And for the example in how, so how about my family? How about my future? So, how about my learning? And then how about my attendance? For example, nawalan ka ng internet. So, you have many questions in your mind. And also sa don't, you don't want to have a poor grade. And you don't also want to have a poor attendance. And you also don't want to be a burden to your family and also to your group mates. And for the can't, you can't make, for example, pabaya to your studies, your family, and also your dreams. And also, you don't want to feel bad for yourself, your others, and your family. And actually, with this what if, how, can't, bad, and don't, what you can actually say is the word no na sana hindi na lang ito nag-exist or sana ay hindi na ito nangyayari. And now, the greatest challenge na ni-face natin today is yung question na are we really ready for the new normal? So, kayo po personally, are you ready to face the new normal? So, in the screen, we can see na are we ready for this? So, dito sa mga challenge, change, shake up, and disrupt. So, normally daw ang isang individual na mentally healthy can still manage yung kanilang mga anxiety, yung kanilang mga mental health factors na nakaka-affect sa kanilang well-being. But for example, in this challenge, change, shake up, and disrupt. So, kapag for example, in this time of pandemic, we are challenged, especially ng mga unang quarter ng pandemic, na hindi natin alam kung ano yung talagang ano ba yung pandemic, paano ka ba mag-iingat dito, paano nag-i-spread yung virus. So, there's challenge. And when there's a challenge, there is a change. So, di ba, nagkaroon tayo ng community quarantine. So, who would have thought na ilalockdown ang Metro Manila? So, there is a change. And also, yun nga, consistent hand washing, disinfect ng ating mga bagay, ng ating mga gamit na hinahawakan, and also yung mga pag-iingat sa ating sarili. And then, sinasabi dito na when you can't afford to have the challenge and also the change, the tendency is you shake up. So, hindi mo na alam kung anong gagawin mo, hindi mo na alam kung paano mo sisimulan yung mga bagay na kailangan mong unahin, And then, ang tendency is for you to disrupt. Nadidisrupt ka, naguguluhan ka, hindi mo alam kung ano yung mga bagay na kailangan mong gawin. So, sabi nila, ang isang individual daw na mentally healthy, kapag ka siya ay nadidisrupt or when faced with challenge, change, so they tend to make a to-do list kung ano yung mga bagay na kailangan nilang gawin. So, for example, 10 minutes meditation, pack lunches, and so on. So, gumagawa sila ng mga to-do list para at least stay sane pa rin sila sa mga bagay-bagay. So, hindi sila maliligaw or malalaman nila kung ano yung kailangan nilang i-accomplish for a certain day or for a certain minute or hour within the day. So, for example, sa orasan na ito, so ikaw mismo personally, meron kang time for your leisure time, for your studies, for your breakfast, for example. So, mentally healthy individual daw is tend to have this kind of illustration na meron sila mga sinusunod na goals na kailangan nilang gawin. But then, when an individual is faced with a or he or she is mentally challenged, the tendency is hindi na nila alam kung ano yung mga bagay na kailangan nilang unahin at kailangan nilang gawin. And some questions like, for example, kapag po ba consistently nag-handwash, makakonsider na po ba to as OC or is it already a disorder? So the answer is no. Kasi syempre, for example, right now, we are in a pandemic and yung virus, hindi naman natin siya nakikita, so hindi natin alam kung nasa saan siya. So the tendency for us is, syempre, ingatan yung ating mga sarili by consistently hand washing and disinfecting yung mga bagay na hinahawakan natin or pupuntahan natin. But then, sinasabi dito na kapag ang isang tao ay, for example, mentally challenged, so hindi niya na alam kung ano yung mga bagay na kailangan niyang unahin, and minsan yung mga bagay na kailangan niyang gawin is nadidisrupt, or yung mga bagay na kailangan niyang unahin ay hindi na niya alam kung paano yung sequence nito. And also, yung isa pang pinakamalaking challenge na naibigay sa atin ng pandemic is yung ating pagiging socially distant with our peers or our relatives. So, di ba, before ang term is social distancing. So, now is physical distancing. So, bakit na siya pinalitan? Kasi pag sinabi doon natin na social distancing is you personally is being socially distant to individual. Hindi ka na nakikipag-usap, hindi ka na nakikipag-communicate. That's not social distancing means. Kaya pinalitan siya ng World Health Organization from social distancing to physical distancing. Kasi, kumbaga, physically, i-distansya mo lang yung sarili mo sa isang tao, pero hindi socially. So, you're still there, nakausapin sila or makipag-communicate sa kanila. So, next, let's discuss life before and during pandemic. So, before, we tend to be physically connected with our classmates, can cheer them up when they are feeling down. So, for example, may mga group works, group activities, recitations. So, kapag hindi nila kayang sumagot is physically kaya natin ipakita sa kanila yung support. Or for example, may group work, kaya natin silang i-cheer up. Next, we can also get along with our peers. For example, after ng stressful na class period ninyo. So, after nun, pwede kayo magsama-sama, mag-share ng inyong mga thoughts and even ideas after classes. And also, you can also share foods, stories, and brainstorm with them. So, for example, may mga activities kayo na hindi na naiintindihan, pwede kayo personally magkaroon ng encounter and pakita na sa isa't isa yung support ninyo para mas matutunan nyo yung isang specific task or specific na bagay. And also, it is easy for us to comfort our friends or peers who are having family problems or to trouble with their peers, family, or even sa kanila mga personal. But due to the pandemic and lockdown, we experienced last March up to present, these things turn into something that seems na we should all face things alone and all by ourselves, and also this pandemic is a game changer to most people. So what does this mean on students? So for students daw, lockdown means that many schools are closed and delivering of curriculum is more difficult now than ever. So majority of students will have to learn from the safety of their homes, and to some it can associate as full alternative to face-to-face learning. And also, it can be a source for social distancing and self-isolation. So, for example, meron siyang problem with recitation and then feeling niya wala na yung mga friends niya to support them or him or her. So, nagkakaroon din ng mga pagkakataon na they are having that tendency to feel self-isolated or nagkakaroon sila ng self-isolation. And also, financial can also be a consideration and also yung privacy. So, kaya right now, kapag ka nagkakaroon kayo ng class is nakita nyo na talaga is yung mga faces ng classmates nyo, but you don't have the time to physically connect with them. So, what does this mean for educators? So, hindi lang naman ito issue ng mga students lang. Syempre, pati ito ng mga family members and even the educators. So, sabi sa studies, good thing daw at first. So, kasi syempre, parang hindi ka na kailangan gumising ng maaga para mag-travel, nasa bahay ka lang. But then, there is a struggle without interaction. And they can easily sustain social and mental well-being. Kasi, syempre, for example, may mga students din sila na nahihirapan, kaya nila i-comfort iyon physically. Pero, kapag ka naman, ngayon, dahil nga online class na lang or hindi na sila nagkakaroon ng physical connection, so mas nahihirapan silang itap yung kanilang mga students. So, what are the advantages of asynchronous online learning? So, it allows students to participate in high-quality learning and students can participate in classes anywhere. The question now is who's more at risk when it comes to this type of pandemic, or sino yung mas at risk in this time of pandemic? So, sinasabi dito is yung mga person with existing mental health condition, those having depression, anxiety, stress, or other mental health disorders. So, ibig sabihin ba nito kapag wala kang underlying mental health problem, excuse ka na for having mental health problem during the time of pandemic? So, the answer is no. So, sinasabi lang dito na mas at risk sila kasi they have existing mental health condition. In fact, during the first quarter of the pandemic, so marami ding lumapit sa amin before na nagpapasik ng online counseling and even psychological first aid to address their psychological needs. And second, na mas at risk is yung mga individual na financially unstable. Kasi ibig sabihin, lalo yung mga arawan ng kita, so hindi nila kayang i-sustain yung mga medications nila, foods nila for a week, kasi nga arawan lang yung kanila mga sweldo. Unlike sa mga individual na kayang or afford nilang bumili ng supplies nila for a month, for a year, or even for a week. So now, let us discuss differentiate healthy and pathological ways of coping to stress and mental health aspect. So, it is important na malaman natin paano ba natin masasabi kung healthy pa yung pagko-cope natin sa stress or sa pandemic, or paano natin masasabi na kailangan na natin mag-seek ng professional help. So, let us first explain or discuss or describe what is mental health. So, in identifying mental health, it is important to identify 4 factors. So, it states here na mental health is defined as a state of well-being in which, number 1, every individual realizes his or her own potential. So, kayo as individual, nare-realize niyo pa ba yung worth ninyo, yung potential ninyo? Are you aware na you are good enough? Are you aware of your skills, your strengths? Can cope with the normal stresses of life. For example, may isang problema. So, how do you cope with it? Hanggang sa panaginip mo ba, naalala mo pa rin ito? Or after this certain period of time, nakakalimutan mo na siya? Can work productively and fruitfully. Kapag ka ba meron kang ginagawang task or accomplish or meron kang hindi accomplish na bagay, nagagawa mo ba ito ng productive and with the best of your knowledge and skills? And lastly, is able to make a contribution to her or his community. So, yung mga bawat bagay ba na nagagawa mo personally, sa palagay mo is can contribute to your community. So, when there are 4 na makakapag-describe what is mental health, so there's also 4 factors para masabi natin na baka mamaya we are mentally challenged. So, una, mental disorder comprise a broad range of problems with different symptoms. However, they are generally characterized by, number 1, some combination of abnormal thoughts. So, kanina kung sinabi natin na can realize his or her own potential, ngayon nagkakaroon ka na ng abnormal thoughts. So, feeling mo hindi ka na magaling, hindi ka okay, hindi ka mabuti, or hindi ka pakinabang. And also, you are also having abnormal emotions. So, kanina sabi natin can cope with the normal stresses of life. So, ngayon, emotions mo, when you're facing with a stressful situation, madali ka na naiinis, madali ka nagagalit, bigla ka na lang umiiyak, there's a sudden burst of emotion, and also abnormal behavior. So, kanina sabi natin can work productively and fruitfully. So, dito nagkakaroon ka ng abnormal behavior. Hindi ka na nakikipag-communicate sa mga taong usually kinakausap mo. Hindi mo na nagagawa yung mga bagay na ginagawa mo before. And lastly, have abnormal relationship with others. So, gaya na sabi natin kanina, is able to make a contribution to her or his community. Ngayon, you're having a relationship or abnormal relationship with other people. Okay? So now let us discuss the biopsychosocial model of health. So here, i-discuss natin kung bakit ba ang isang individual ay iba-iba ang reaction nila to a certain situation. So dahil merong factors ang biological, social, and our psychological aspects. So for example, in biological aspects, so dinidiscuss din dito yung ating physical health, disability, genetic vulnerabilities. For example, an individual is having a disability. So normally, mas sensitive sila for criticism and other individuals or other factors affecting their biological aspects, and also yung kanilang physical health if they are having a sickness or they are having problems with their physical health, so it can also contribute with their mental health. And sa social, so peers, so malaking role din ang peers sa role or sa personality ng isang individual, and even yung family circumstances. For example, lagi nag-aaway yung parents nila. So, may mga pagkakataon na it can also affect their mental health. And also yung school, kung paano sila dinidisiplina teacher, and even yung mismong school itself. So, it can also affect sa personality ng isang individual. And even yung psychological aspects. Self-esteem, the way they perceive themselves, and when they are faced with challenges, paano nila nagko-cope dito. So, sa coping skills and even yung social skills, kung paano sila nagkakaroon ng socialization with other people. So, it is important also to discuss yung 4Ds na sinasabi natin, in which para malaman natin yung isang individual is kailangan na niya mag-seek ng professional help. So, first is yung dysfunction. So, for example, yung classmate mo or yung kakilala mo, mukhang hindi na siya nakakapagsuklay, nakapag-toothbrush, nakakaligo. So, at first, parang nakakatuwa or nakakatawa for some, pero it can also be a sign na they are having mental health problem. For example, dysfunction. From the word dysfunction, so ibig sabihin sa kanilang daily functioning is may nabawas. That's why it is called as dysfunction. So next is yung deviance. For example, may nakita ka ng kakaiba sa kanya or yung behavior niya is different na sa behavior ng iba. So that's deviance. So gaya nung nakikita natin sa picture, so lahat sila blue, siya ay nag-iisa na lang na red. So, next is yung distress. If an individual is having a stressful situation na tingin niya ay hindi niya kayang i-cope. For example, hanggang sa panaginip niya is nakikita niya yung stress na to. After a year, tapos na yung event. So, hanggang ngayon, napapanaginipan niya pa rin or naiisip niya pa rin or nagkakos pa rin ito sa kanya ng too much stress. And lastly is yung dangerousness. So, here sa dangerousness, it is important to identify na we should break the confidentiality kasi there is already life involved. Either it be something na kailangan niya saktan yung sarili niya or mananakit siya ng ibang tao. So, when these 4Ds are present, dysfunction, deviance, distress, and dangerousness, so it is important na to acknowledge and ask them to seek for professional help. So, now the question now is, are all stress daw ba is negative? So, the answer is yes, no. So, dahil may tinatawag tayong eustress and distress. So, stress is the non-specific response of the body to any demand on it. So, when we say eustress, ito yung positive stress, and it can lead to an optimum performance and productivity, and distress is more on the fatigue, discouragement, or burnout. So, for example, sa students, sa eustress, first time mo makikipag-meet sa mga classmates mo, so you're being stressed kung ano yung bagay na kailangan mong gawin, suotin, and so that's eustress kasi alam mo naman na kahit na stress ka sa kung ano yung magiging look mo, ang later on is magiging optimum naman yung performance and it will lead to productivity. So, whereas yung distress naman is more on fatigue, discouragement, and burnout. So, ano ba yung mga bagay na nagkakos ng stress to some people? So, feelings of stress are normally triggered by things happening in your life, which involves, number 1, being under lots of pressure, facing big changes, especially now during the time of pandemic. So, worrying about something, not having much of control over the outcome of a situation, having responsibilities that you find overwhelming, and not having enough work, activities, or changes in your life. Or other factors na maaaring mag-lead sa inyo into stress. So, dealing with pressure, paano ba tayo mag-deal sa mga bagay na ito? So, una, identify your triggers. So, it is important to identify ano ba yung bagay na nagpapastress sa'yo. So, issues that come up regularly, for example, bagay na you're worrying about. For example, reciting or attending an online class, or one-off event that are on your mind a lot, such as moving a house or taking an exam, or ongoing stressful events like being a caterer or having problems at school. So also, it is very, very important to organize your time, Or sometimes manage the workload. So identify your best time of the day kung kailan mo kayang gawin itong isang important task that need the most energy and concentration at that time. So make a list of things you have to do, vary your activities, and try not to do much at once. So diba sabi nga natin, one step at a time. And then take breaks and take things slowly. And then strengthening emotional resilience, make some lifestyle changes, practice being straightforward and assertive. So halimbawa marami ning workload mo, so let them know na marami ka nang ginagawa. So pwede ka naman humindi, learn to say no. So use relaxation techniques, develop your interests and hobbies, make time for your friends, find balance in your life. So ito no, so few slides left na lang. So itong illustration na to is very very important. So what you think, how you feel, and what you do. So sinasabi dito na yung mga bagay doon na iniisip mo is from there, doon nagmumula yung mga bagay na nararamdaman mo at mga bagay na ginagawa mo. So for example, sinimulan mo na mag-isip na ay feeling ko babagsak ako. So ano mararamdaman mo? Malulungkot ka. And then anong gagawin mo? Parang tatamarin ka na, hindi ka na ma-motivate na mag-aral and so on. Pero kapag ang mindset mo daw is kahit mahirap, papasa ka. So how you feel, magiging motivated ka, magiging positive yung mind mo, or magiging happy ka. And then ano yung magagawa mo or what will you do? So mas magiging motivated ka to do a certain task. So sinasabi dito na what is very powerful is kung ano yung mga bagay na iniisip natin or what's in our mind. Kasi from there, doon nagmumula yung bagay nating nararamdaman at bagay nating naiisip at nagagawa. So, strengthening emotional resilience. So, use your support network, your friends, family, support at work, support at university or college, and online peer support. And then, strengthening emotional resilience, how to provide support. So, don't give direct advice. So, encourage person to come up with own solution. Kasi may mga pagkakataon na akala mo yun na yung best solution, pero para dun sa isang individual na yun, hindi naman applicable. So, let them find their own solution and i-guide mo sila. And then, always remember that we should prioritize solution over the problem. And also, hindi lang naman more on solution discussion. So, dapat, we also need to discuss how to implement yung mga solutions na kanyang na-identify. So, this ends our mental health webinar. So, hope na marami kayong natutunan. So, thank you and God bless us all.